of the Board of the Chicago Transit Authority. We are going to begin our Committee for Strategic Planning and Service Delivery committee meeting, which was scheduled to begin at 9 a.m. And I will turn it over to Director Ortiz.
Thank you. Good morning, I'm Rosa Ortiz, and I am the Vice Chair of the Strategic Planning Committee. I would like to call to order the December
9 a.m.
13th meeting of the Committee on Strategic Planning and Service Delivery. Georgette, please call the roll.
Rosa Ortiz,
Here.
Michelle Lee,
Here.
Nima Ja.
Here.
I would also like to note for the record that Director Jakes is here as well as President Carter.
Thank you. Director Miller, the chairman of this committee, is suffering from a personal illness, but wishes to participate in this meeting remotely. Is there a motion to permit Director Miller to participate in this strategic planning committee remotely?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Lee and seconded by Director Ja that Director Miller be allowed to participate remotely in the committee meeting for strategic planning and service delivery. We'll take the roll. Director Ja?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. Director Miller, you have been authorized to attend the meeting remotely.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Director Miller?
Okay. Good morning. I'm Director Miller. I'd like to call to order the the December 13, 2023 strategic planning meeting. Georgette, would you call the roll, please?
Director Ja?
Here.
Director Ortiz?
Here.
Director Lee?
Here.
Director Miller?
Here.
Director Miller, you have a quorum.
Thank you. I'd like to have a motion to amend the meeting via minutes of the May 10th, 2023 minutes meeting.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved by Director Lee, seconded by Director Ja that the minutes of the meeting of May 10th, 2023 be approved. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Ja?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
The motion to approve the minutes passes.
Our next order of business is a presentation entitled Bus Vision by Mike Conley. Mike?
Morning, directors. I'm Mike Conley, your Chief Planning Officer. With me today is Jennifer Henry, the Director of Strategic Planning here at CTA. On the purchasing agenda for today's board meeting is an item at D1, which is a no-cost time extension for our contract with Jarrett Walker and Associates for the Bus Vision study. I wanted to share with you an update on the recently completed Bus Vision framing report and give you a preview of next year's activity. Hopefully that pulled that up. Yes. Bus Vision is a three-phase initiative to take an unprecedented look at our bus system as a vital part of the mobility landscape of the city of Chicago. The written framing report completed as phase one summarizes the existing system pre-pandemic and with the COVID-19 influence. The next phase, begin early in 2024, will be a rollout of the phase one report and engagement in an almost year-long dialogue to examine the choices for system improvements. Phase three, late next year, will outline what we have heard in phase two and propose actions to improve the bus system. This process will be guided by the written report, which brings attention to the choices which need to be made given our available resources. This pair of maps from the framing report indicates the reach of the rail system and the reach of the bus system. The left map is actually the rail system. That's a half-mile walk shed from each of the rail stations on our rail line. Right map shows the half-mile watershed for all of the bus stops on our system, which extends into the Cook County near suburbs as well as the city. The right map demonstrates the full coverage of the bus network with over 70% of the residents of the Cook County service area and the city service area within walking distance of a bus stop. The pandemic threw into high relief the needs of our essential workers who ride transit. These essential workers continue to ride bus service at very high rates. They are those who are not able to work from home. They're those who are usually lower income, and they're more likely to be Black and brown. They lack alternative transportation options coming from a one-car or a no-car household. The Bus Vision report concludes that the CTA bus system is very well designed, provides a comprehensive mobility grid across our service area. Bus Vision effort is really the first wide-ranging study of our bus system. Other past efforts were aimed at where to cut service. This one is aimed at how to improve the bus system. We want to consider what we could do if the resources were increased. You know that the Plan of Action for Regional Transit, or PART, recommended not only enough funding to close the financial gap, but additional funding for creating the system that we want. This Bus Vision will help us outline what that system could be. Frequent service is important for ridership growth. It's important to the quality of transit service, and it's essential to our riders. We began this study prior to the pandemic as a result of ridership losses we were experiencing in 2018 and 2019. The consultant contract was signed and notice to proceed given in March of 2020, just as the pandemic imposed a stay home order. The pandemic has certainly had an influence on our study, mostly serving to delay what we're about to enter into, the public process of talking to our customers and non-customers about the system. Much of the underlying base information has not changed, and it represents CTA both before and after the pandemic. The ridership impacts, which we have been sharing with you all along, are the element that has changed over time. Additionally, the pandemic emphasized the importance of the bus to our customers and clearly highlighted the population segments with essential jobs who kept riding during the deep pandemic times. The next portions of the study examine demographic and equity considerations of public transit in our city and the underlying conditions, which indicate that transit can help reduce inequity, cannot solve the challenge of the city of Chicago by itself. I believe that this material will resonate in our future discussions with our allies in the state legislature, with our allies at City Hall, throughout the advocacy community, and with our core riders. Persistent segregation and the legacy of redlining has had a deep impact on the housing patterns in Chicago. The left map graphs in color the number of jobs within 2 miles of residents' living space. Green is for many jobs available, and the deepest red indicating areas with the fewest jobs nearby. Further away from jobs you are is normally also a strong indicator of how far you are from most services, including retail, schools, and medical centers. The right map displays income differentials by census tract, with dark blue for the high income and deepest red for the lowest income areas. The map shows that these differences are not just rooted in our communities and in our housing patterns. Income inequity continues to impact the way our city lives, the way our city works, and the way our city moves. The locations of jobs and racial residency patterns are not within CTA's control, but understanding them is essential to looking at how we will reshape transit here in the area. The right map also indicates that these impacts, both good and bad, extend out into the areas of Cook County beyond the city border, as does our transit service, which includes both the city of Chicago and 35 suburbs. 2 more maps from the Vision Framing Report. The left one shows access to jobs by transit within a 45-minute commute. It clearly illustrates the effect of our rail system and emphasizes the reasons why CTA is committed, so committed we are to the Red Line extension. The right map shows areas in green where access to public transit is multiplied the number of jobs reachable within 45 minutes. The darkest green shows the highest increase in job access due to the presence of the transit system. There's a clear advantage shown in that darkest green area, which shows that transit makes jobs 50 times more available in Englewood, West Englewood, and Chicago Lawn. But the green extends across the south and west sides of the city. This is certainly a result of where the jobs are and where low-income residents live. This data clearly demonstrates the impact an effective transit system can and does have. So powerful, available transit does make a difference. But while Bus Vision can address some of this, the challenges in Chicago are more than our transit system can solve by itself. We will begin the public outreach in the new year. Intention is to publish the study, kick off a series of public meetings, and discuss with our riders what the bus system can be. We will add a dedicated website for this initiative and conduct a set of surveys. Both Government Community Relations and our Communications Department will be close partners as we move forward in this effort. The framing report completed in phase 1 does not say do this or do that. It looks at the system, provides an honest assessment, and outlines choices which the service area as a whole will need to consider as we create the bus system for the future of the Chicago area. The answers will come in the next phase after we open a dialogue with our customers and non-customers alike about what the transit system is and what it should be. Our ultimate goal is to improve the CTA travel experience. We're looking forward to your input and to the dialogue. Thanks for listening, and I'll be glad to try to answer any questions.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike. Is this modeled after any other major city, or are we the lead in this initiative?
There are other cities which have done this type of study. But again, across the country, this firm that we're using has provided this service for several other major metropolitan areas.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make a couple of additional comments to the presentation that Mike just gave on this. A couple of things to keep in mind, as Mike indicated, we have never undertaken this type of a comprehensive study of our entire bus system the way we are talking about today. One, when we talk about creating a world-class transit system, we talk about a number of factors that go into that. There are also organizations that currently rank the overall benefit of a transit system throughout the world. One area where we actually rank very high from a world-class transit system perspective is our bus system. And the reason for that is both its geographic coverage, as Mike indicated, 70% of the entire population is within, a walking distance of a bus stop. The other is the fact that we operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The exercise that we're undertaking right now is really looking to see how we improve that even more. And that's important for a couple of reasons. One, the future for major ridership growth, in my opinion, is in our bus system. And the reason for that is that I have a lot more flexibility with what I can do with bus and what I can do with rail. The rail system operates the way it operates. The only thing that I can really change on the rail system is frequency. But other than that, it goes where it goes. I'm not moving rail lines around to accomplish anything. The reality, though, is that a city over time changes very dynamically in terms of where people want to go and what they want to do. And it's your bus system that has historically been sort of the backbone iron horse of an agency's transit system in general. And in fact, CJ's history, our bus system has carried way more customers than our rail system has. That has tended to change over time in terms of modern history. But if you look over our agency as a whole, our bus system was the workhorse of moving people in the city as a whole. The other point I wanted to make is that the reason this is so unique is that usually when we go out to the public to get public input on bus service, we are proposing a particular set of options. Whether it's service cuts or whether it's adjustment to service, we as an internal agency go out and say, we're going to modify this route to do A, B, and C. Give us your input, feedback on that. This is a situation where we're not coming out here with some preset layers of this is what we want to do. This is where we're really going out to the public first and saying, tell us what you'd like to see. Talk to us about what you are willing to view as the future of our bus system as a whole. And let's talk to you about what the impacts of those decisions are going to be. And then we're going to take that feedback and turn it into a series of recommendations that we'll come back to the public and board with in phase 3. So it is a very different public engagement process than we historically do. But the timing of it, coming out of a pandemic, with all the travel patterns changes that we know are occurring within our system, is perfectly aligned for this type of a conversation. When we started this work, it was before the pandemic hit. We were basically doing it because it was something we felt we needed to do because we've never done it in the history of the organization. The pandemic has added another set of urgency around why this is important. And we're just fortunate to be perfectly positioned to go into this kind of a conversation, really as we come out of the pandemic, to really focus on what we want the future of our public transportation system to look like, which will be beneficial not only in terms of what we may do right now, but it'll also be very beneficial for the conversation we're going to have in Springfield about what the funding should be for CTA, because I have no doubt that some of what will come out of this will be issues for which there are financial resources that have to be identified to pay for. But at least we will have gone in with the knowledge of what the community wants, what we can provide them, and then have the broader conversation about what we need to ultimately get to where we want to be. That aligns perfectly with the bigger conversation that I want to have about our financial needs going forward, which ultimately feed into what the future of CTA is going to look like going forward. So all of this is sort of coming together in sort of a perfect storm of opportunity for which we want to be sure that the public has an active and engaged role in the conversation.
Oh, wow. Thank you, President Carter. Thank you, Mike. Sound very interesting. I look forward to continuing the study and participation. I have no further questions.
Okay, we'll take questions from the other directors. Director Ja,
No questions, thank you.
Director Ortiz,
I'm just really excited about the study. I think it's definitely reflects a lot of the needs that we saw from the pandemic about who really uses the buses, how important they are to the way we function as a city. So looking forward to all the findings from there. I anticipate there's going to be a lot of thoughtfulness about how we reach our constituents, our clients, our service, both providers and recipients. So in terms of languages and how we reach out to our various populations, I look forward to hearing all those details when appropriate. So thank you.
Director Lee.
No questions, just thank you for the update, and I'm really excited as a frequent bus rider myself. You know, Mike, I really enjoy the buses, so I'm looking forward to also working with the community to move forward, so thank you.
Director Jakes.
Questions?
Director Miller, there are no further questions.
If there's no further questions, move for adjournment.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Lee, seconded by Director Ja, that the meeting be adjourned. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Ja, Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Lee,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes,
Chairman Miller, the motion to adjourn passes.
thank you, Georgette. We are now adjourned.
Good morning. My name is Georgette Greenlee. I'm the Secretary of the Chicago CTA Transit Board, and we are now moving into our Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee meeting. Chairman Jakes.
Morning. I would like to call to order the December 13th, 2023 meeting, Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Georgette, will you please call the roll?
Director Ja.
Here.
Director Lee.
Here.
Director Ortiz.
Here.
Director Jakes.
Here. Director Miller is suffering from a personal illness but wishes to participate in this meeting remotely. Is there a motion to permit Director Miller to participate in the Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee remotely?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Lee and seconded by Director Ortiz that Director Miller be allowed to participate in the Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee meeting remotely. We'll take the roll call vote. Director Ja, Director Miller. I'm sorry, Director Ortiz.
Yes.
Director Lee, Director Jakes.
Yes.
The motion to allow Director Miller to participate in the meeting remotely passes.
Director,
Director Jakes, you do have a quorum.
thank you. Director Miller, you've been authorized to attend the meeting remotely.
Thank you.
Our first order of business is the approval of the committee minutes of November 15th, 2023. May I have a motion to approve?
Second.
It's been moved by Director Lee and seconded by Director Ortiz that the minutes from the committee meeting of November 15th, 2023 be approved. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Ja,
Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Lee,
Yes.
Chairman Barclay,
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
The motion to approve the minutes of November 15th, 2023 passes. You may now move to agenda item number 3.
Our next order of business is the finance report. Jeremy Fine.
Morning, I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and I'll present the October results today, as well as year-to-date numbers. Wait for that presentation to get popped up here, sorry. Yep. So for, on the next page, you can see the October revenue numbers. You see here fair and pass totals coming in about $600,000 better than budget for the month. You see reduced service subsidy coming in as expected, and non-fare box totals coming in about $400,000 better than budgeted expectations. So overall, for the month of October, we see about $1 million of positive variance on the budget. With regard to year-to-date revenue numbers, they follow a somewhat similar form on the next page. And you see fare and pass totals coming in about $10.4 million better than budgeted. Reduced fare subsidy coming in as expected. And non-fare box totals coming in about $4 million to the positive, which leaves us on a year-to-date basis through October at about $14.4 million better than budget. And we're about $31.2 million better than this time last year. On the next page, you see, and then flipping one more to the October expenses, you see labor coming in favorable to budget by about $3.6 million. Again, this is coming down, still positive, but coming down as we continue to ramp up hiring efforts. Materials coming in essentially flat, slightly positive for the month. Fuel coming in positive, as well as power. And then provisions for injuries and damages coming in as expected. And purchases of security services, as we've ramped up our security efforts, we see higher and unfavorable to budget expectations for the month of about $3.4 million. Other expenses coming in positive by about $6.6 million. So overall, for the month of October, we see about $9 million of favorability for the month. On the next page, you see year-to-date numbers. Again, positive favorability here on labor. Materials essentially flat, but slightly down to budget expectations. Fuel and power have been strong performers for us throughout the year. And provisions for injuries and damages coming in as expected. And security services, again, this will be, as we talked about last month with regard to the budget, will be incorporated into the 2024 budget based on our 23 experience here. Other expenses continue to come in positive over the course of the year. So overall, on a year-to-date basis, our expenses are about $94 million to the positive and favorable to budget. On the next page, we start diving into the public funding. For the month, we see positive favorability for sales tax and PTF, the public transportation funding. We see negative variance for the real estate transfer tax and the PTF on rent. As interest rates have increased, that's obviously had a dampening effect on the sales of real estate throughout the city. But overall, for the month, we still see about $3.6 million of favorability to budget. And if you flip to the next page, you see this on a year-to-date basis. Again, positive favorability on sales tax and PTF, and negative variance on RET and PTF on RET. But again, we're still about $6 million better than budgeted expectations on a year-to-date basis. On the next page, you see our federal funding draws. As you may recall, a couple months ago, we drew down a little bit extra in anticipation of a potential federal shutdown. Thankfully, that did not happen. And as such, we've been utilizing those excess draws over the course of the last 2 months. We're using a portion of it here, but because of the fact that we needed about 11 million in total, we still need to draw down an additional 4.5, which means now that we've drawn down about 52.7% of the total allocation, but we still have over $1 billion remaining. So as per our budget 24 conversations, we expect that these funds will last us through 24, deep into 25, and we'll continue to keep the board apprised on a monthly basis as to how that continues to pan out. But again, all efforts are geared towards looking at solving that fiscal cliff that we'll face definitely in 26, but potentially there in the last month or two of 25. On the next page, you see our commodity purchases. We're where we need to be locked in for the foreseeable future, but we continue to look for selective opportunities for additional fuel purchases. Prices have been bouncing around quite a bit lately, so we continue to look very closely at additional purchases there. We'll be bringing, an authorization for additional power purchases to the board early next year, and look for additional purchases in that commodity. And then natural gas, we're locked in for where we need to be for the foreseeable future through 26. So that concludes the report for October and year-to-date numbers. I'm glad to answer any questions.
Jeremy, under the fuel and power in the future, will they flip-flop as far as numbers are concerned?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as we continue to novate to an electric bus fleet, we do anticipate, obviously the needs that we have with regard to fuel and the fuel purchases to continue to wind down. That will obviously have an effect on our electric purchases. So as we move forward with our power purchasing, that is something that we're taking into consideration, not just with regard to the additional power purchases, but what kind of power are we actually purchasing? And looking at green alternatives within that space as well.
And regarding the fiscal cliff, end of 2025, you all are working on that now. But now, so I can understand, are we able to use CARES funding to help in 2026? So it's not a use it or lose it type of deal?
Correct. We will still have, potentially if the stars align, if there's additional positive budget variance through the end of 23 going into 24, if that money does, kind of go into 26, we are still fully able to use those funds in that 26 period as well. But we do realize that this is a finite amount of money that we have at our disposal. We have been very prudent about utilization of those funds, and we are, frankly, lasting longer than a lot of other transit agencies around the country because of the efficiencies that we've been able to effectuate over the last 8 years. But we do realize that that is a finite bucket of funds, and once you use it, there's nothing, replenishing that bucket. So that's why it is very critical for us to continue to lobby the state for additional funding to help solve that fiscal cliff on a going forward basis. Because again, once those funds are used, there's nothing behind it unless there's an additional package passed, for additional funding from the state level.
And then my last question is with RET. With RET being unfavorable, is that really affecting budget? Because, the guess is that next year we're supposed to be in a bad financial way. And I'm not talking about CTA, I'm talking about the country. Mm-hmm. And I know that history says that, it has to fall before it can rebound. Will that affect us with RET being unfavorable?
So we keep a very close eye on that. Obviously we've had some negative variance that's been offset, as you're kind of alluding to, by the sales tax and the PTF funding that are economically sensitive. That's been a big tailwind for us lately. And, you know, knock on wood, we continue to hope that that continues to play out that way. We'll continue to keep a very close eye on that. And, you know, I think that we've tamped down some of our expectations with regard to, both, continued growth. There is some growth, but some, kind of tamping down the potential growth for public funding, trying to be conservative in our budgeting efforts, as well as, what our RET expectations are. But again, we keep a very close eye on that. We'll be obviously reporting on that on a monthly basis. But again, those two in 23 have kind of netted and washed out. The negative variance on the RET has been, kind of overcome by the positive variance on the sales tax and PTF. But it is something that we talk about not only here at CTA, but also with the RTA and the other service boards, because the RTA, and that was a big part of our conversation in the 24 budgeting process, is talking about those sales tax and PTF expectations, because RTA sets those marks for the three service boards as part of the budget process. So that was something that we did highlight, and our concerns were incorporated in those 24 budgeted expectations about the fact that, we are concerned about where the larger economy could potentially head. That all being said, I think there's been, folks out there talking about a downturn in sales tax receipts, or just kind of, larger economic impacts for a while. And thankfully, that has not manifested itself yet. We continue to see a strong economy, kind of outstripping what a lot of, folks may be out there saying. So again, knock on wood, hopefully that continues, but we did incorporate some of that into our 24 expectations.
Okay, and then my last question is, when does RTA get back to CTA regarding the budget, the proposed budget for 2020?
So that will be approved. It was heard, and there was a public hearing where all three service boards, presented our budgets to the RTA, finance committee and the board at large last month. It will be approved by the board this month at their hearing.
Thank you, Jeremy. No, thank you for the questions.
Director Lee,
No further questions. Thanks, Sharon.
Chairman Barclay.
Just one question, maybe this is directed at Dorval as well, but given that we're still looking at this fiscal cliff at some point or another, perhaps we could get a legislative update to just see, so the public will know and the urgency of it, but also the board will also be informed of all the steps that in order to be mindful of this and what we need to do. So that might be a good idea.
Sure.
No, we're happy to do it as you may be aware, or as you know, that CMAP presented to this board the part report, which is really the first step process. The state legislature had asked CMAP to do an analysis of the financial situation here in the region and make a number of recommendations regarding how that should be addressed by the state legislature. That report was finalized about a month and a half ago. It has been presented, it was presented to the transportation leadership that sponsored the bill at a press event just last week. And that is sort of the quote official kickoff of the conversations down in Springfield. Having said that, our team was down in Springfield during the veto session, already starting the conversations with the leadership and others about what CTA's financial condition looks like. I anticipate that there'll be a lot of traveling back and forth to Springfield over the course of next year. The general discussion that's occurring down in Springfield right now is that next year is going to be an education year for the General Assembly, really getting them up to speed on what the challenges are, what the approaches may be to solve these challenges, understanding sort of what the opportunities are to sort of reimagine public transportation in this region. All of us, RTA, CTA, Metro, PACE, CMAP will be down there sort of having those conversations. Certainly we'll welcome the board participation in that as well. That will then lead to some sort of definitive action taking place in 2025 that would allow us to basically address this problem before we would face the budgetary impacts of hitting that fiscal cliff. Personally, I'd like to see that timeline moved up a little bit more and not wait to the last second. But in my experience, the legislative process rarely tends to move faster than the need to address a problem. And so the good news is that we're aligned for that conversation right now. You know, everyone knows in advance when the crisis hits. No one is talking about, no one told us, no one said, you know, we didn't know this was a problem or anything like that. And so I think that we should be able to have a very productive conversation next year that should hopefully lead to a real strategy for execution on what we're going to do to fix this problem and to really put us in strong financial condition, not just for 2025, but also for the long-term future. If we get what I get out of this, we get the type of financial stability that doesn't put us in a situation where every 6 or 7 years we're having the same conversation over and over again about the fact that we need to readdress the funding to basically support the ongoing operations of CTA Metro Pace.
Okay, yeah, I mean, so maybe next month, legislative payment, it's gonna update us. That'd be great. Thank you.
Director Ortiz.
Yeah, I agree. I think, thank you for bringing that up. I think it'll be really helpful to just continue to stay on top of where conversations are. And perhaps even alignment with any other groups that might need to kind of come on board to help advocate for us and with us on these groups. Thank you.
Director Shaw.
Thank you. No questions.
Director Miller.
No question. Thank you.
Director Jakes, there are no further questions. You may proceed to agenda item number 4.
Our next order of business is an ordinance authorizing the First Amendment to the sublease with the Community and Economic Development Association of Cook County Incorporated of the 12th floor located at 567 West Lake Street, Chicago. Bill Mooney.
Good morning. Good morning, your Chief Infrastructure Officer. Staff recommends approval of an ordinance authorizing a First Amendment of a sublease of the 12th floor of 567 West Lake Street to the Community and Economic Development Association, or CEDA. On September 10th, 2014, the Transit Board approved a 10-year sublease with CEDA for 35,000 square feet on the 12th floor of the CTA-owned headquarters at 567 West Lake. CEDA has requested a First Amendment to the sublease, seeking an extension of the initial term from April 1st, 2025 through March 31st, 2035. At the current rental rate plus an annual escalation rate of 75 cents per square foot. CEDA will be responsible for paying its proportionate share of operating expenses. All other terms and conditions of the sublease will remain in full force and effect. I'll be happy to take any questions on this subject.
I have no questions, Bill.
Director Lee.
No questions.
Chairman Barclay.
No questions.
Director Ortiz.
No questions. Thank you.
Director Shaw.
Questions, thanks.
Director Miller.
No question. Thank you.
Director Jakes, there are no further questions. You may proceed to agenda item number 5.
We will now review an ordinance authorizing the Chicago Transit Authority's Innovation Studio Program to pilot innovative solutions, new technology in an expedited manner. Holly Pop.
Good morning, Director Jakes. I'm Molly Poppy. I am the Chief Innovation Officer for the CTA. I'm here to discuss the Innovation Studio. Specifically, the Innovation Studio arose out of conversations that we've been having at an agency level of how do we look at incorporating cutting edge technology and process improvements at CTA. As many of you know, existing public sector procurement processes oftentimes take a very long time. They can take a year, 18 months, sometimes longer. They also require the particular public sector to know what type of product or solution they're trying to procure. And what we are looking to do for the Innovation Studio is create an agile, quick process for prototyping solutions and piloting tools in a way that can allow us to assess, is this going to solve some of our biggest challenges that we're facing, some of our pain points that our customers have, so that then we can have the discussions about how do we potentially scale that for full implementation at the CTA. A couple key points of the project and what we will be doing and seeking authorization on. There's going to be a multi-phased approach to how we're going to be doing the Innovation Studio. We will be having problem statements released on an annual basis that will be developed with the public and our writers, many of our boards, including you all, as well as our Citizens Advisory Board, who we actually heard from yesterday, as well as our ADA Advisory Board, to come up with the problem statements that help to address some of the challenges and what they want to see us addressing as an agency. We will also have some internal input as well, because part of this is also looking for how do we improve internal processes at CTA and help to support our employees. Once we develop those problem statements, we will actually, I'm actually going to scroll ahead, why not? Once we develop those problem statements, we will go through and have an engagement process with the private sector. So that engagement process will include the Department of Diversity, Department of Procurement, and Department of Communications. And what we'll be looking to do is engage a diverse set of public sector partners. This could be organizations, this could be businesses, this could even be not-for-profits. We believe that they have a solution or a tool that should be submitted to the Innovation Studio that they'd like to see piloted on the system in hopes of addressing some of the challenges that we put out. From there will be an evaluation process. The evaluation process will be a multi-phased evaluation process. It will involve engagement with the Innovation Department, who will do an initial review of the proposals, really for feasibility, making sure that what's getting submitted is reliable, is something that is feasible, and is responsive to the problem statement. From there, the Innovation Department is going to partner with our various user departments in IT and safety and security, law, operations across the agency to then review these proposals in depth. There will be an in-depth evaluation process where we will sit down with the submissions with the proposers, we call them innovators, with those innovators to discuss their proposed pilot or proof of concept. And then we will make some decisions of what pilots or proof of concepts we want to move forward with the individual challenge statements that we put out. From there, we will develop a professional services agreement or a contract, some type of agreement to make sure that both the agency as well as whoever the innovator is, the pilots that are selected, we have a strong foundation for what are you going to be doing for CTA? What is the pilot going to do? What is the expectations of the innovator? Frankly, what are the expectations that CTA needs to also follow in order to achieve this pilot and support its implementation? And then what are those KPIs? What are those metrics that we want to see come out of this pilot so we can determine feasibility? One thing that I do want to note that we, based on some prior discussions, we are amending the Innovation Studio. So initially we had anticipated there would be a budget tied to the Innovation Studio. How we will fund pilots going forward, we will look for pilots to be initially on a pro bono basis. If for any reason we feel that funding is needed in order to support the pilots, we will come back to the board and seek funding specific to those pilots. One thing, and just to give everyone a little bit more background on the Innovation Studio and how it sort of compares to what we see out in the world today. There are two sort of peer agency comparisons. There's other agencies that have similar concepts as well, but we really spoke with Boston and New York specifically about some of their solutions and how they've run their innovation proposals in Boston and the Transit Tech Lab in New York. And we really took some of those learnings from them. And what we found most powerful in what we learned from Boston and New York is it's important to put out a challenge statement. It's important to direct the private sector. And so that's why we do have the challenge statements that we will be putting out. And that's what we learned from New York. And what we learned from Boston is it needs to be an open invitation process. It needs to be available to a diverse set of companies. You don't want to limit yourself to only companies that have previously worked in the transit space or only companies that are very large and sort of have set aside budgets for pilots. You want to make sure that you really do try to recruit that diverse set of innovators. And then the last piece is we continue to think about, okay, we've started the pilot, now what happens? How are you going to continue to make sure that it's successful? The Innovation Department is going to be working with the user departments. You can kind of think as the Innovation Department as the PMs, the user departments as the SMEs, who will then work to implement the pilots and then as we move forward and the pilots will be piloted for no longer than 12 months on the system, those same groups will come together. They will evaluate the effectiveness of the pilot or proof of concept, and then ultimately prepare a memo with a narrative evaluating the design and setup of the pilot, the value of the pilot to the agency, and most importantly, the opportunity for scalability. From there, we will make a decision as an agency of if we are going to move forward with this pilot or POC at scale, and we will follow then our standard policies for purchasing. And just to be very clear, just because we participate in a pilot, it does not require the CTA to purchase the technology or solution that's identified in the pilot. This is very important because the pilots are about learning. The pilots are about testing out problems. It is really meant to be a learning exercise for us. How do we look to address our challenges with what's available in the market and continue to look at the evolving technology space that we find ourselves in, and being willing to fail. I think that's really important. Anytime you think about innovation or you think about a pilot, you need to go in sort of clear-eyed, knowing that you might fail, and that's okay, and taking the learnings from the failures and then applying them going forward. The last piece that I just want to talk about before I take any questions from the board is the problem statement. So this is something that I think is really critically important as we think about the Innovation Studio, are those problem statements. How are we going to make sure that we put out the right challenges, the right problem statements? And so we, as I mentioned, we had a conversation with the Citizens Advisory Board yesterday. They were very supportive of the idea and really had a lot of very good ideas about the types of problem statements they would like to see. And it was very important for us to also talk, and we talked with the Citizens Advisory Board about the Innovation Studio is just one tool in our toolbox. It is not meant to address all the challenges that the agency is facing. It is meant to address specific problem statements, specific challenges that we would like to pilot different technology solutions for. And so just as a reminder, Mike Connolly, the Chief Planning Officer, talked about Better Streets for Bus. We've also announced the chatbot that will go live in early 2024. We've discussed expanded partnerships with DFSS. So I just want to note that the Innovation Studio is one tool. There's a lot of other ways that we are looking to address the challenges that we have as an agency. And in the discussion with the CAB and also in discussions with this board and discussions with CTA employees, we have narrowed our problem statement topics down to 3 key areas. The first being safety and security. And we heard a lot from folks of the type of safety and security investments that they'd like to see. Some of it can be around some of those, I would say, traditional safety investments about right-of-way intrusion, preventing and detecting individuals from entering our rail right-of-way. We also heard some conversations about smart camera technology. How can we use our vast camera network in order to monitor safety outcomes in a more proactive way? From process improvements, we talked a lot with CTA employees because that really is the customer, if you will, on this problem statement. It will have impacts to the public sector or to the public because we will be looking to gain efficiencies. But we started to discuss, there's lots of new ways to charge e-buses. Can we look at potentially piloting different e-bus charging? There's a lot of opportunities to try to use our cameras, not just for safety and security, but for asset monitoring. And then we also talked about elevator and escalator uptime and what are the potential solutions to try to improve those escalator and elevator uptime. And then the last piece is really important. It's that customer experience. What are those pain points that the customers are experiencing on a day-to-day basis? And what are the potential solutions that can make that customer experience better? And really at the heart of that discussion that we had with the CAB and that we've been having with others is that reliability. It is that real-time information. And so we started to discuss what are some of those problem statements that may target those solutions. So I'll just leave this up here. These are just the next steps. If the board does approve the Innovation Studio to move forward, we will start the process of soliciting additional external feedback on the problem statements and refining those problem statements. We would anticipate launching the Innovation Studio early next year in January. And then from there, we'll do outreach solicitation for participation from the private sector. And then we actually hope to launch the first pilot or POC in June of 2024. And just to remind everyone, the goal is really that's a 6-month process for development of the agreements and developing of what the pilots will actually do. And then we will have a 12-month, up to a 12-month process for piloting or testing the solutions on the system. So with that, I will take any questions from the board.
Molly, thank you for your presentation. And I say this for the sake of the public, that I asked for those that don't know, we get briefed. So we don't ask a lot of questions. A lot of times we ask 20 million questions between Monday and Tuesday. But one question I did not ask, is there a DBE requirement on this?
There is not a DBE requirement. I don't know if JP wants to come up and address this. JP and I have lots of conversations about the opportunities here. And we think that this is a really good opportunity for diverse and small businesses to participate with CTA. So JP, I'll let you.
Thanks, Molly. Good morning, directors. Juan Pablo Prieto, Director of Diversity Programs. Good morning. Like Molly said, we spoke before putting this together. We have a lot, DBEs come to us a lot and say, hey, I've got a solution for you. I saw this on the news and I've got a solution to propose for you. And we really had no avenue of bringing those DBEs in to test those solutions that they proposed. So this is a great step in giving those DBEs an opportunity to actually come forward with those solutions and test them if they're accepted into the pilot. Whereas before we'd have to say, thanks for the idea. We'll see if we need it and we develop an RFP, and then you'd have to compete for the RFP for it.
So the question that I thought Director Jakes asked was, is there a component that you will at least invite DBEs to participate?
Yes, so we will, like Molly said, when we put out the problem statements, we're going to go out cast a wide a net as possible, and that includes the DBE community. So we'll be intentional on how we get it out to the DBE community. We normally email out all of our contracting opportunities, so we'll do that with the problem statements as well. And then we'll get them to our technical assistance agencies. They can get it out to their memberships. And it'll be something that we talk about in our presentations as well to be on the lookout for.
On that note, and also just thinking about the sequencing of how this is rolled out, particularly around the problem statements. I understand for logistical purposes here to just do one round, that means a whole year. And so I just wonder if you have assessed or if we can incorporate a primary 1 year rollout, but then like a 6 month other, incentives or other problems that can be set out. So it's not a full year that organizations, particularly I'm thinking about DBEs as well, or other partners, right? Waiting a whole year to come up with a solution for another problem might be a little bit long, but if we incorporate like a secondary problem solving approach halfway, that could also kind of keep generating solutions throughout.
Yeah, we really thought of this as an iterative process. So we're going to have some information sessions to hear not just from the public with input on the problem statements, but hear from the business community on input on what we're proposing. And what we do intend is we start this process and we may decide, we need to continue to have these problem statements go live. We may decide we're going to maybe only go with one to start, and then we'll do two more, maybe one in April and one in June, for example. So yes, so our thought process right now is we put out the 3 problem statements, but then we listen, we hear what people are saying and hear what the private sector is responding to and start to make some changes from there. So I would anticipate, Director, that there will be changes in how we do this going forward, because this is something very new for us. We haven't done this before, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of the feedback is, in the middle of the year, we all look at each other and there's a new problem statement, a new challenge, and we want to put that out. So we're not limiting ourselves to 3. We're sort of starting with this concept of 3 and then saying, we may go to 4, we may go to 5, or maybe we don't get a lot of feedback on 1, we go to 2.
Molly, this may be jumping the gun, but how would these companies' intellectual property be protected?
So there will be, I'm going to play my own lawyer, Kent. There will be protections within the contracts that we have. We will have agreements with them. Typically how our contracts are written is companies that have their intellectual property that they bring to a project, that intellectual property is protected. Any intellectual property that is developed as part of the pilot, right? Say we work together and we come up with our own sort of combined CTA and company A intellectual property. Typically that is considered the intellectual property of CTA, but we've had negotiations and conversations with companies about how to protect that and handle that going forward.
So if company A submits a solution to problem A and CTA does not accept it, but then 2 years down the road, it becomes a great idea and CTA implements it, but doesn't use company A, but it's their idea. How do we make sure that we don't run into a problem?
It's gonna have a night.
I agree with you that we're gonna have to look at the proposals and
Okay.
in terms of our solicitation for these proposals to make sure that that's addressed.
Director Lee.
Thanks, Molly. I'm really excited about this, honestly. I love the idea of fast tracking innovation as much as possible and cutting through red tape. So looking forward to this and also looking forward to incorporating like the public and everyone's problem statement and keep us updated. So
Director Ja.
All right, I'll try not to be long-winded because I know you and I have had a long conversation around this. As we move forward, key things that I remember from kind of how we've gone back and forth on this is being grounded in reality and knowing the infrastructure is ready for if the idea really hits through, that there is a potential for you to scale, because otherwise it's a waste of resources, it's a waste of everything. And just being aware of where we stand from a current state standpoint in terms of how are we able to scale this, right? That's number one, no matter what use case you bring to the table. Number two is let's stay very tight to our big rocks. And I think we already know a number of issues that we've heard through public, comments, internal discussions, that there are things that we're already working on. Let's make sure these are used as a building blocks to solve for that. And they're not being created in a silo where this is a great, exciting idea. Let's just do it. And then number three, I know this is hard for any company or organization is, do we have the muscle memory of being able to accept failure? Being able to fail fast in a situation like this, the idea of 6 months and a year scares me. Innovation should not take a whole year for one idea but I understand we're in a different space. So how are you going to build the culture in the studio of folks who are supporting external parties that are coming in that are empowered to come up with bold ideas and make mistakes and not be penalized for it? And that needs to be well thought out and needs to be documented, because it's one thing to say, hey, we are okay with failure, but actually accepting that, internalizing that, and then moving forward to make another mistake is what I think the biggest challenge of this is. So let's just make sure that that infrastructure and that support system is created through this. And let's hear more, right? I think I love the continuous process of innovation where we're not looking and locked down in one problem and then we're not looking at when information change, new technologies come, how are you keeping up to speed? How are you using generative AI to keep you informed, your team informed in terms of what's the breaking news? We don't want to read the news, we want to make the news, right? And I love saying that because I think if you instill that culture, the force multiplier of that in terms of solving the big rocks in the future. So think about it long term. Let's not think about new and shiny object. Let's just do this. What is the outcome? And so let's work backwards from that and let's iterate on that. And if you need help, obviously I'm here. Any resource that you need, but this is an amazing idea. If we're able to break it down and put that structure, especially around foundation and infrastructure, that's my biggest concern in terms of this, how we define success criteria coming out of this. So just, I know we've talked about this, but I want to make sure that, that's like really internalized and documented and we look at the progress from like start to end.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Ja. I appreciate your partnership and helping us make this the strongest sort of solution and studio we can. And I do anticipate coming back to you all probably many times talking about how we move this forward, what the challenges we're facing, and how we, to your point, how do we adapt? How do we not sort of say, this is, we've thought about this in December and not be wedded to it if it doesn't work in January. Make sure that we are creating that ability to adjust and evolve.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, let me just add a little bit more to the comments Director Job made. So I think she made a number of very good points. When Molly and I talked about this concept, it was intended to create exactly the kind of space that you're talking about. The challenge that we have within our organization is that when you are basically an organization that is basically trying to run a system 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, there isn't a lot of capacity for the type of creating the type of environment where you can have this type of engagement with companies who want to bring ideas to you, but for which you don't have the time, energy, or resources to necessarily engage it correctly. And we have a lot of examples of failed opportunities as a result of that. That's one reason why I chuckled when you said you have to be prepared. I think we know what failing is like. And many times that failure occurs not necessarily because the product itself wasn't a good idea, but because our ability to both spend time with, understand, and work with the company that was developing that product wasn't available to make it happen. And so I agree 100% with what we have to put in place to make this work. And I think you articulated that very well. And as staff, we have to be sure that we're coming back to you and really giving you the understanding of how we're going to do that. But I think when I have looked at these types of portals, I'll say, for lack of a better word, that have been set up in other agencies, that's the reason they do them. The ability to figure out how to deal with these types of, for lack of a better word, oddball ideas that come in, and knowing where to go with them, and more importantly, to be able to externalize out to the business community and others that, you know, we are open for business. To have these kind of conversations is exactly how you get to the point of the end result, which is, as you indicated, is we want to be making the news around what we're doing, not basically, you know, following the news. And I think this is going to create the opportunity for us to do that, albeit in a very limited way. And I think it's important to recognize that there is innovation happening elsewhere within the organization. But this is really trying to address a unique set of circumstances that is really hard for us to get our hands around, and gives us the space to do what we need to do with a group of people who will be dedicated to this, not dedicated to, repairing the right of way and on their spare time to look at things we can do to address right of way intrusions, things like that nature. So it's intended to really create the opportunity where innovation can really flourish within our organization. And it obviously has to work very closely with the departments who ultimately will be the beneficiaries of this work, but it's not putting it on that department to have to manage all of this. So I'm excited about the concept. I agree that there's a lot that we still have to flesh out about how this is going to work. And there's a lot that we want to be sure that we're keeping the board engaged in around this. I particularly welcome your involvement in this because of your experience and background in this area. But I think that we have the opportunity to really be an industry leader around this type of work within our industry, and ultimately come forward with ideas that we can implement that are really going to address, to your point, the big boulders that we constantly are trying to push, and for which there's always a desire to find ways to make it a little bit easier.
Director Miller?
No question. Ditto to all that's been said. Thank you.
Director Jakes, there are no further questions.
May I now have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
Second.
It's been moved by Director Ortiz and seconded by Director Ja that this item be placed on the omnibus for board approval. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Ja?
Yes.
Director Ortiz? Yes. Director Jakes?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Motion passes. Director Jakes, you may now proceed to agenda item number 6.
Our next order of business today is the review of contracts number A1 through A2, transit operations. I have no questions.
Director Jakes, you may now proceed to contracts number F1 and F2. I'm sorry, B1 and B through B3.
Okay. Our next order of business today is the review of contract number B1 and B3, contract award for infrastructure. No questions.
Are there any questions from any of the other board members? Director Lee?
No question.
Chairman Barclay?
Question.
Director Ortiz?
No.
Director Ja? Director Miller? Director Jakes, we may now proceed to contract number D1.
Our next order of business is the review of contracts numbered D1, contract award for planning. No questions.
Director Lee, any questions?
No question.
Chairman Barclay?
No question.
Director Ortiz?
No.
Director Ja? Director Miller?
He's muted.
Director Miller, you're muted. Director Miller, you're muted.
No questions, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Director Jakes, you may now proceed to contracts number F1, F2.
Our next order of business is the review of contracts numbered F1 and F2, contract award for administration. No questions.
Director Lee?
No question.
Chairman Barclay? Director Ortiz?
No.
Director Ja? Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Jakes, you may now proceed to contract number G1.
Our next order of business is the review of contracts numbered G1, contract award for technology. No questions.
Director Lee, do you have any questions? Chairman Barclay?
Question.
Director Ortiz?
None.
Director Ja? Director Miller?
No questions.
Chairman Jakes, you may now proceed to H1.
Our next order of business is the review of contracts numbered H1, contract award for safety. No questions.
Director Lee? Chairman Barclay?
Done.
Director Ortiz? Director Ja?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Jakes, there are no further contracts.
Since there are no further questions on the contracts, may I have leave to place the 10 contracts on the omnibus?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Lee and seconded by Director Ortiz that the 10 contracts be placed on the omnibus. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Lee?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Ja? Director Miller?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Since there's no further business to come before the committee, may I have a motion to approve the omnibus and recommend the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Lee, seconded by Director Ortiz, that the omnibus be placed before the board for approval. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Ja? Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Jakes, the motion passes. You may now proceed to committee agenda item number 7.
And finally, I have a motion to adjourn the last committee on audit, finance, audit and budget for 2023.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Lee, seconded by Director Ortiz that the last Finance, Audit and Budget Committee meeting of the Transportation Board for the Chicago Transit Authority be adjourned. Motion, well, we'll take a roll call vote. Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Chairman Jakes?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Ja? Director Miller?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. It was taking Director Miller a little too long to say yes. It was like, wait a minute. All right.
For the Transit Board for the Chicago Transit Authority, we are now going to have our regular Transit Board meeting for December the 13th, 2023. Chairman Barclay.
Good morning. I would like to call to order the meeting of the Chicago Transit Board for December 13th, 2023. Bridget, please call the roll.
Director Miller,
Here.
Director Ja,
Here.
Director Ortiz,
Yeah.
Director Jakes,
Here.
Chairman Barclay,
Here.
Director Lee.
Here.
Chairman Barclay, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Director Miller is suffering from a personal illness but wishes to participate in this meeting remotely. Is there a motion to permit Director Miller to participate in the CTA regular transit board meeting remotely?
Second.
It's been moved by Chairman Barclay. You can now proceed to the next item.
You've received the agenda for this meeting in advance of the meeting. Are there any modifications or additions to the agenda?
Chairman Barkley, I move that the agenda be amended, that the executive session precede the president's report.
Second motion.
It's been moved by Director Jakes and seconded by Director Lee that the agenda for this morning's meeting be amended and that the executive session, which is on the agenda subsequent to the president's report, precede the president's report. We'll take the roll call vote. Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Ja, Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Chairman Barclay,
Yes.
Director Lee.
Yes.
The motion to amend the agenda passes.
Thank you. Our first order of business is public comment, Georgia.
Mr. Chairman, we have 4 public commenters. I'm sorry, I think we have 3. We have 5 registered. They're not all sitting in their seats. I've lost track. We have 5 who registered. I'm going to call their names: Joseph Makowski, Nick Hunder, Trudy Leon, Bill Morton, and Tyrone Moore. We also have a written public comment which will be distributed to the board, which has been submitted by John Paul Jones of Sustainable Inglewood Initiative. I would, first of all, thank you for coming to make a public comment before the Chicago Transit Board. Please make sure that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. And we will call first, Bill.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, Board, staff, President, Council. Appreciate the opportunity, as always, to speak here at the board meeting. 2 constituent concerns. I'm the president of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce, and we represent the residents, businesses, organizations. Kathy Powers, one of our residents, she lives near the Morse Red Line. The Morse Red Line from her house, but she can't use the Morse Red Line because it's not accessible to her. It frustrates her very much. She's on a walker. She's a tall woman, and she has a special walker because she's tall, so she can stand up instead of going down. And she requests not only the ADA accessibility on the Morse and Jarvis lines, but also when it comes to the escalators and the elevators citywide. I don't know if it's for the buses as well, but they're geared towards the chairs, the different other walkers and the wheelchairs, but they're not geared towards her walker. She's having a hard time with the tall walker, and she wanted me to bring that to your attention. I interviewed with her on WZRD on Monday, 88.3 FM in Northeastern Illinois University on a radio show. And she's just having a real difficult time with her situation. And she'd like to see, she'd like to have the ability to use the Morse Red Line station. It would make her life so much better. And also she would like to have accessibility for people who are using all kinds of equipment. And she's having a hard time with hers in particular. I don't know the details about that in particular, but she wanted me to relay that to you as a constituent concern. Second constituent concern is from Isaac Campbell, who I believe is in the room right now. He has an issue with the shelter, the bus shelter at Sheridan and Chase. He lives in the area, and that's in Rogers Park in the 49th Ward. And the particular bus shelter, it was removed when Joe Moore was alderman of the 49th Ward. It was a while ago. right towards the end of his term. And it's been gone for a while. He has to wait for the bus. He works at a Jewel, one of our Jewels, and he really wants to see that shelter back up. So these are two constituent concerns. I'll go into more details when I get more details, maybe next time around. But I just wanted to bring these to your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next public commentator is Joseph Makowski.
My first time, do I just like look at the camera?
Let's look at them.
At them, okay. I wrote my concerns down, more so as like a proposal. This is about the discontinued CTA route, the 49A Southwestern. I believe it should see a revival in some capacity for many reasons. Pace, the sister bus company, states that the 349 Southwestern, which is the only bus route that serves Southwestern completely at this time, is its second most utilized bus route. I talked with the Southwest bus operator for the region of Southwest with Pace Bus, and that's what he said. It's the second most popular Pace bus route. However, the Pace 349 has issues with reliability. The route cause seems to be buses departing late from the terminal, or other times the drivers simply call off. This results in individuals, often groups of 10 or more, as I've observed over several months, at popular stops like 79th or 95th and Western, Southwestern, being stranded for an hour or longer, waiting for the next Pace 349 bus, often inconvenient to the destination. I believe the CTA 49A Southwestern should be brought back and synchronized to slightly offset the Pace 349 Southwestern and its departure times by 5 or 10 minutes, so that if the Pace 349 Southwestern bus is canceled or doesn't arrive on time, that CTA will have people covered with the 49A bus. The strategy is already in place on Halsted with the Pace 392 bus, having the offset of the CTA 108 bus in the event of malfunctions along a popular destination. I believe it's time that Southwestern has the security as well. I know like approximately 10 years ago, the 49A was a discontinued CTA bus route, and it ran from 79th and Western to 135th in Western and Blue Island. I proposed that because of COVID and everything, that if the 49A were to be brought back, that it only serves the areas of high ridership where people are often stranded, which would be from 79th and Western to the terminal on 119th and Western. There's already a CTA terminal there with the route 119 bus, which I personally take very often. I found little to nobody waiting at the 119 or the 349 stops, but if they needed to go farther than that along Southwestern, then they could wait for the Pace bus there. But in my several months, I've never observed anybody there. It's just the popular destinations like 79th and Western, 95th and Western, that people often get stranded because the Pace 349 does not arrive. And that is why I propose that the CTA should consider bringing back the 49A Southwestern bus, because there's often groups of 10 waiting at those popular destinations. I believe it would bring income for CTA. And that concludes my comments with the board. Thank you.
You, Jones.
Our next public commentator is Nick Under.
Good morning, board. I'm going to say the word we and us a lot. I don't represent any organization. These are just the generalized experiences of community members who try to engage in a line of dialogue with the CTA. Anyways, I've come here to ask CTA leadership to work with the broader community and increase its transparency. CTA can work with citizens. I saw it just yesterday when the Citizens Advisory Board received great presentations from some of your employees who presented earlier today. But the board and president have a different idea. The last public interview President Carter did was in April 2023 at a public session where citizens could ask questions to the CTA hasn't occurred this year. This board and president's attempt at public transparency is so poor that in January 2022, City Council had to hold up transferring funding because President Carter was a no-show at their meeting and had to apologize just to receive it. He also stiffed alders in September of 2022 by getting paid by the City Club of Chicago to speak instead of showing up at a planned meeting. I and others keep showing up to these meetings and we're not even getting paid to be here. Behind me are so many hardworking employees of the CTA, but imagine if they stiffed their boss. That would easily result in their firing. So why is this behavior acceptable for president upheld by this board? This is a government agency and the community pays your salaries. We're all looking for a hint of transparency, but it keeps getting denied. In fact, at the last board meeting, Vice Chair Jakes noted how a significant portion of public comments at the 2024 budget meeting revolved around training schedules and quality of service. We heard from President Carter that the CTA has more rail operators than 12 months ago, but even that simple fact is not true. CTA's own dashboard shows operator headcounts were at 746 in October of 2022, but dropped to 728 12 months later. If you want to dismiss this comment because you think I'm providing false numbers, please increase your transparency. That's your own publicly displayed info. We're tired of sitting here and watching the president and the board become annoyed that the general public is trying to hold you accountable. There's a wonder why all this criticism exists. Claims made by the CTA, intentionally or not, are being misrepresented and factually incorrect. Can't trust anything that comes out of the CTA's mouth. President Carter's own words from the last board meeting, quote, "Believe me, there's no one who wants to increase service levels more than me to alleviate criticisms I'm getting," close quote. If you want to fix that, talk to us, tell the truth, host a public information session where community members can ask questions. Talk to the press directly instead of through your spokespeople. Also, your FOIA officers are hardworking people, but they, like the CTA, drag their feet at answering our requests. It's gotten so bad that we've had to turn to the Illinois Public Access Counselor, and a complaint is going to be filed with the Illinois Office of the Executive Inspector General. Until there's transparency, we are going to be at every meeting you have and are going to continue against your campaign of false information. And we will use all the tools available to hold you accountable. You can't use synonyms and make false claims to deceive the public of a lack of progress. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't believe Tyrone Moore is here. Mr. Chairman, there are no further public comments.
Thank you to all of our public commenters who came out today. Our next order of business is approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of November 15th, 2023. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Lee, seconded by Director Ortiz, that the minutes of the regular transit board meeting of November 15th, 2023 be approved as submitted. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Lee?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Ja? Yes. Director Miller?
Yes.
The motion to approve the minutes passes.
Thank you. Our next order of business is executive session. It's my understanding, Kent, there is an executive session today.
Yes, Chairman, the board will move into closed session pursuant to the Illinois Open Meetings Act, Section 2C, subsections 1, 8, 11, and 21.
I will now entertain a motion to recess into executive session for reasons stated by counsel.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Lee and seconded by Director Ortiz that the board move into executive session for the reasons stated by counsel. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Ja?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Entertain a motion to return to open session.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Jakes, seconded by Director Ortiz, that we return to open session. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Ja,
Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director, Chairman Barclay.
Yes.
The motion to return to open session passes.
We will now address board agenda item number 4A. Kent?
Thank you, Chairman. In item 5A, the board reviewed the closed meeting minutes from October the 13th, 2023.
Thank you, Kent. May I have a motion to approve the closed session minutes for October 13, 2023?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Jakes, seconded by Director Ortiz, that the minutes from the closed session meeting of October 13th, 2023 be approved. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Ja,
Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Chairman Barclay.
Yes.
The motion to approve the minutes from the closed session meeting passed.
Thank you. We will now address board agenda item 4B. Kent?
Thank you, Chairman. Board agenda item 5B involves the lawsuit of Joel Bird et al. Versus Chicago Transit Authority, case number 20 CV 3613. The board discussed in closed session a recommended settlement of this case in the total amount of $1,664,608.
Thank you, Kent. May I have a motion to approve the recommended settlement in the case of Joel Bird et al. Versus Chicago Transit Authority, case number 220 CV 3613 in the total amount of $1,664,608. I apologize.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Jakes and seconded by Director Ortiz that the board approve the settlement award in the case of Joel Bird versus CTA. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Ja,
Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Chairman Barclay.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Our next item of business on the agenda is our president's report will be given by President Dorval Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Good afternoon. First, I'd like to say a few words about the latest developments following the incident on November 16th, in which a yellow line train collided with a piece of snow removal equipment. Yesterday, the National Transportation Safety Board issued a preliminary report that lays out the facts of the incident. Notably, this report does not reveal analysis of this information, nor does it speculate as to the cause of the incident. This is because the NTSB's investigation is ongoing, and their team is continuing to gather information related to the incident. As we have said from the start, CTA is working closely alongside NTSB in their investigation and assisting their team. This work includes a thorough review of all aspects of the yellow line, including the signal system, tracks, and equipment, as well as extensive testing of various aspects of yellow line operations. As CTA president, the safety of CTA riders and employees is of absolute paramount importance to me. An incident like the one on November 16th warrants intensive reviews of various aspects of the yellow line operations. In this case, this has meant that the yellow line service has remained suspended and 3 bus shuttles have been running as this review is completed. I recognize that this creates an inconvenience for some riders. We are working with the NTSB as they gather further critical information in the coming days and are hoping to reach a point soon we will be able to reopen the line. As has always been the case, safety will drive that decision. We'll keep the public updated on those plans. In anticipation of the yellow line's reopening, CTA has shared with NTSB a series of actions that are planned for the yellow line. As the NTSB shared yesterday, these actions include newly established speed reductions on the yellow line, extra cleaning of yellow line rails, additional oversight of communications regarding the presence of rail equipment on tracks being used in service, and increased communications and engagement with CTA employees on these measures. These are all steps the CTA will take out of an abundance of caution. NTSB has not directed these actions, or issued any specific safety directive to CTA. But nonetheless, we have in place this plan to mitigate certain potential safety risks presented by the unique environment and operating conditions of the Yellow Line. As you know, I am very limited in what I can say about the investigation itself and what it has uncovered. The NTSB's longstanding protocol related to incidents is that the parties involved must not discuss any details of an ongoing investigation, and that all media inquiries about the incident be directed to that agency. We respect and will continue to follow NTSB's protocols. That said, I can tell you, we have analyzed our entire system, and there are no other locations equivalent to this section of the Yellow Line. Following the incident, we worked quickly to confirm that no other areas of the CTA rail system have the same design features as are indicated on the Yellow Line itself. For this reason, as we await future visits and reviews by NTSB of certain important factors, we are focused on implementing mitigation efforts targeted on the Yellow Line and moving the investigation forward. We thank all the affected riders for their patience and trust as we continue to collaborate with the NTSB as their investigation continues. The final board meeting of this year is also a really good time for me to reflect on some of the other things that we have done as an agency. And I'd like to take a moment to really focus on a special point or period in time that we're facing here at CTA. As you may know, we ask a lot of our chiefs and top-level executives. I make no apologies for that because we are an agency that runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and with these very important jobs comes a very tremendous level of responsibility. But there is a special group of men and women, a fraternity or sorority of sorts, who rise to the occasion each and every day and who exemplify what public transit excellence is all about. I believe that has never been truer of anyone who's walked our halls than Mr. Michael Connolly, our Chief Planning Officer. Mike is retiring soon, and to say that he will be missed is an understatement. For our entire staff, Mike has truly been one of CTA's great gentlemen, kind, humble, and always willing to share the credit for his team's successes. He is a consummate professional who is always prepared and more than willing to share his vast base of transit knowledge. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the role that our planning department plays at CTA, its importance cannot be overstated. Since assuming this role in early 2018, Mike has led a very capable team of men and women within that department as they plan our schedules, work on the planning of major projects, and help determine bus stop placement, among many other things. So how did Mike become such a tremendous transit executive? He began his career as a bus operator in DeKalb, Illinois, on the DeKalb Husky Line, and rose to management positions in transit, both in Virginia and here at CTA. Mike joined the CTA in 2001 and has served in a variety of capital and planning positions, including Vice President of Scheduling and Service Planning. In these roles, he has applied his wealth of transit experience to help move initiatives forward. I would point out that I've always believed that Mike was the secret weapon for us getting the Democratic National Convention. Because as we took the train from O'Hare into downtown Chicago, it was Mike, through his rolling encyclopedia of knowledge, who kept the entire DNC committee engaged with all of his knowledge about our system, about the line, and about all the sites along the way as we came on board. And in fact, they were so impressed with Mike that he actually gave another tour of members of that committee for a trip on the Orange Line to go out to Midway Airport. After that tour that Mike gave, I heard directly from the representatives of the committee about how impressed they were with not only Mike's knowledge, but his overall enthusiasm for public transit. Certainly something that I think had a positive impact on the overall perception that the committee had of the city, which ultimately, as you all know, resulted in us getting the opportunity to host the Democratic National Convention this upcoming summer. Mike's career has mirrored those of some of our most storied and high-achieving employees, starting at the bottom with a long tenure with the agency and ending his CTA career in a key leadership position. He's had the kind of career of which he can and should be tremendously proud in retirement. And Mike, I wish you all the best. Wherever your next chapter takes you, you've left an indelible impression on me, your coworkers, and this agency. Mike's daughter, Phoebe, has placed a 3-minute video on YouTube from his retirement get-together, and I would encourage all of you to watch it when you have the chance so you can hear his gracious, warm, and funny remarks. They reflect his positive attitude, his passion for transit, and his ability to always lift people up. During the video, Mike said to the people in this room, "You're making history every day." Mike, you too made history here and left an indelible impression on all of us. Congratulations, and on behalf of the entire CTA family of employees, I wish you all the best. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you. I want to also congratulate you, Mike, on your institutional knowledge, professionalism, leadership are greatly appreciated by this board, and the CTA is better because of your dedicated service. Your optimistic and collaborative leadership style has played an integral role in helping CTA navigate through our challenges, like those we've experienced the past few. They've certainly been key to our great milestones, like the impressive progress on the Red Line extension. I also appreciate your work with the ADA Advisory Committee. You've advised my office on appointments to the committee, and your guidance has resulted in an engaged group. Some previous ADA Advisory Committee members have become members of this board, including Director Irvine and our current colleague, Director Lee. Mike, on behalf of the board, I want to thank you for your service to the CTA. I wish you all the best in your retirement. Congratulations on a job well done. I'd like to open it up to any other board members who want to have a brief remark.
I want to say thank you for all of your contributions. I know I always have a lot of questions for you, so thank you for taking the time to walk through them, think through them, and provide feedback on all the various questions that we all have. So thank you for your continued service. Congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you. Congratulations. I'm gonna miss the wallpapers. I'm always looking forward to every time you do the briefing and the way you present and simplify things for folks who are not knee deep. Appreciate all I've learned from you as well through these briefings.
Mike, you have been a joy to work with these past few years. And it's good to know that your last presentation, you leave a great legacy and thumbprint when you talk about equity as it relates to all communities, especially underserved communities in the city. And so, you know, those communities may not know you by name, but do know that when Black and brown communities are able to access transportation like the rest of the city, that they have to give credit for you and your team for that. So congratulations and thank you for the legacy you leave.
Director, can we turn Director Miller's volume up, please?
I don't think it's registering on his end.
Okay, we're going to work on Director Miller's volume, but I think he's saying some very nice things about you.
Thank you, President Carter.
Thank you.
We will now address board agenda item 6, board matters. Georgette, do we have any board matters today?
Mr. Chairman, we have 2 board matters for today. Number 1, to approve a resolution changing the dates of our January and July 2024 Chicago Transit Board regular meetings, and to pass a resolution honoring the life of Bill Mooney III.
I have a motion to approve a resolution changing the dates of the January and July 2024 Chicago Transit Board regular meetings.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Jakes, seconded by Director Ortiz, that the January and July 2024 Chicago Transit Board regular meeting dates be moved. We will take a roll call vote. Director Ja?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Miller? Still working on audio. The motion passes.
Thank you, Georgette. I'd now like to read into the record a resolution honoring the life of Bill Mooney III. Whereas William R. Mooney III was born in Chicago on August 25th, 1953 to his parents, William R. Mooney and Margaret Regan Mooney. And whereas Bill was raised in Chicago and was a proud graduate of Loyola Academy. Whereas Bill completed his undergraduate degree at the Illinois Institute of Technology in Civil Engineering and his MBA at the University of Chicago while working at the Chicago Transit Authority. And whereas Bill had two beloved children, Patrick Morton and William IV, and was a devoted husband to Eileen Marie. And whereas Bill committed to a career of public service following the tradition of generations before him who served with the Chicago Police Department, beginning as a police officer on the transit detail. And whereas the transit detail was transferred to CPD, Bill stayed on with CTA and joined an accelerated management program, transitioning from law enforcement to becoming a transit professional. And whereas during his 34 years at the Chicago Transit Authority, Bill served as head of the paratransit program, rail operations, and bus operations, and he ended his tenure as chief operating officer. And whereas after leaving the CTA, Bill provided transit consulting services to agencies across the world. And whereas Bill's legacy at CTA lives on not only due to his impressive service at CTA, but through his son, William R. Mooney IV, who has held a variety of roles at CTA, currently is CTA's Chief Infrastructure Officer, and has mirrored his father's standard of excellence. Whereas Bill was also father-in-law to Leah Dawson Mooney, a consummate transit professional who recently ended her own accomplished run as CTA's Director of Strategic Planning and Policy, as well as uncle to Catherine Elkstrom Dykus and Virgil Allen, both valued members of CTA's transit operations team. And whereas Bill was a larger-than-life personality who was dedicated to his family and close friends, and he particularly loved being a grandfather to Lillian and William V. And whereas he was known for hosting epic holiday parties and always opening his home to others, and loved traveling and taking his family on vacations, especially enjoying the trips he took with his beloved wife, visiting the Holy Land, China, and other memorable places. Whereas Bill passed away peacefully at home on November 7th, 2023. Whereas Bill was known for his generosity, warmth, faith, fierce loyalty, and he will be deeply missed by many of those lives he touched. And whereas the Transit Board recognized the positive impact that William R. Mooney III had in both his personal life, professional life, including his substantial contributions to the Chicago Transit Authority. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Chicago Transit Board hereby celebrates the life of William R. Mooney III and his significant contributions to the Chicago Transit Authority. Be it further resolved that the board recognizes William R. Mooney III's accomplishments in his personal life and professional life. Be it further resolved that the Chicago Transit Authority expresses condolences to Mr. Mooney's family and close friends. And I believe his wife is here with us. Let's give her a round of applause. Coming and sharing your husband with us. Thank you. May I have a motion to adopt the resolution honoring the life of Bill Mooney III? So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Jakes and seconded by Director Ortiz that we adopt the resolution honoring the life of Bill Mooney III. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Ja?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Miller? The resolution passes.
Our next order of business is a report from the Committee on Strategic Planning and Service Delivery, which will be presented.
By our Vice Chair, Director Ortiz.
Okay, yes.
Thank you. The committee met earlier this morning and approved the May 10th, 2023 committee minutes. The committee entertained one report, a presentation on an initiative entitled Bus Vision by Mike Conley, our CTA Chief Planning Officer, and Elsa Gutierrez, CTA's Vice President of Service Planning and Traffic Engineering. That concludes my report, Chairman Barclay.
Our next order of business is a report from the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget, which will be presented by Director Jakes.
Mr. Chairman, the committee met earlier this morning and approved the November 15th, 2023 committee minutes and reviewed the finance report. Committee reviewed two ordinances. One, review of an ordinance authorizing a first amendment to the sublease with the Community and Economic Development Association of Cook County, Inc. of the 12th floor located at 567 West Lake Street, Chicago. Two, review of an ordinance authorizing CTA's Innovation Studio program to pilot innovative solutions and new technology in an expedited manner. The committee also reviewed 10 contracts. The committee placed the two ordinances and the 10 contracts on the omnibus. The committee approved and recommended for board approval 2 ordinances and the 10 contracts. That concludes the report of the Finance, Audit, and Budget.
I will now entertain a motion to approve the omnibus.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Ortiz and seconded by Director Jake that the omnibus be approved. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Ja?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Oh, we can hear you. The motion to approve the omnibus passes.
Thank you. Our next order of business is the construction report from Bill Mooney, our Chief Infrastructure Officer, and Juan Pablo Prieto, our Director of Diversity Program.
Good afternoon. Once again, I am Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer. I'm joined by always my dear friend,
Juan Pablo Prieto, Director of Diversity Programs.
We are here with your bridge construction report for the month. We will start where we normally do, our Damon Station project. We're moving forward to some photos here. Framework for the building really is coming together here. You can see the main stairwell being poured, the concrete. This is on the far west edge of that wall. And really you can start to see the framework of the building itself coming together. The exterior will ultimately would be the glass facade of the main building. And you can see kind of that setback view and get a sense of kind of the size and scale of the station. Will be a really beautiful kind of walk up on that west side in addition to our program. Our next project is a non-revenue vehicle facility. We've forward still tight schedule and budget, looking to bring this project conclusion probably late spring next year. A lot of the finishes are what's going on here. So here's a picture of the external storage shelter. So outside the main building, I've been showing you there are a series of auxiliary buildings that will support the operations that go out of here. And this is one of those buildings coming together. And then a lot of the finishes inside. So here, all the cranes are installed at this point. So as we move around the large equipment and all the support products that go with it, there's a lot of support equipment that has to help that. You can see some of that going on. This is on the loading dock. So where we bring trucks in to be able to offload that equipment. And we move forward to Canal, Berry, and Damon substations. I'll pause here to begin with. So Damon substation was showing you a lot of the facade is coming together. You can see the finished brickwork. It's a very dark Black brick will be very rich. This is one of the coolest views. This is actually from the platform at Damon Station. One of the neat architectural features of this is you'll actually be able to see into the substation. This will be a glass facade on that point. And so from the platform there at the Blue Line Station, you'll be able to look down and see the heavy duty electrical equipment, give you a little insight into the background of what happens, kind of that makes the train systems go. It's really a cool system from the substation as well, looking out at the platform. I was out there Friday. It's a really neat view. We continue to move forward with Haymarket. Here you can see them prepping the substation for the second set of lineups. We are running on new equipment there that's been installed as part of this project. The second round of equipment is getting ready to be installed as we speak. And here you can see the preparatory work for that equipment being installed. And then kind of the most interesting thing that's happened since last month is we moved a whole tiebreaker house into the subway. Over a weekend line cut, we brought in 14 different pieces in almost like a Lego set and assembled it in that little tunnel you can see off on the side here in the photo. That was actually a future expansion tunnel that was built with the Dearborn subway so that one day they could spread off to go underneath the Lake Street with potentially another subway. It was a little dead end there. We're taking advantage of the space to be able to put in this tiebreaker house. And here's the last picture with Canalberry Dam, and this is at Berry, and it is sprouted out of the ground. So last month I showed you a bunch of the foundational work, and here you can see all the steel coming up. So you really get a sense of this. But again, is going to be a significantly architecturally interesting building as it comes together. And our last report on Refresh Renew for the year, we have finished all 14 bus turnaround locations, 29 stations. As I've mentioned before, though, we stopped reporting on it. We do actually go into our internal facilities, our employee-facing facilities. We do work throughout the winter in our garages and shop, very similar to what we do. And as we come back with our public program in the new year, I'll show you some of those photos about the work we did over winter, and you'll see some of that. But here's some of our last push for the year. This is on Pulaski and the Pink Line. You can see that curb appeal, the refresh kind of storefront look of the station there. The upgraded lighting and fresh painting really pops out. As always, kind of our contrast in the stairs here between the upgraded lighting, refreshed, paint there. And what would be a Refresh and Renew photo without kind of the night shot of the LED lighting, right? I mean, that just changes the dynamic of the feeling of our stations, but also that whole surrounding area and the amount of output we put on that footprint. And we do get in the back of the house, as I've talked lots of times. This is up at Linden on the purple line. So you can see this is the back of the house space that we use for maintenance personnel and support personnel. And you can see kind of that refreshed look back there. And, again, exterior lighting. And I think this is actually one of the most interesting photos. We resurfaced the whole floor there. You can see the pitting from all the use and abuse and the weathering of this is the main station entrance here. They came through, they broke out all the broken concrete and poured in new refreshed concrete there. It really makes an impact when that customer walks in and on a Monday morning, right? And a couple looks at the last set of bus turnarounds here at 31st and Kaminsky. Kind of that refreshed look on the exterior of the bus turnaround itself. And then we often do the bathrooms and other things there. That brings us to our RPM project. Went through another pretty significant phase change. I'm really happy to report at this point, our entire revenue service on the red, purple, and the brown line are running on new structure exclusively. So we transitioned to what we call North Main Line Phase 3 as part of the red, purple bypass area. And we are now running on that new structure over a series of what we call cut and throw weekends, where we take sections of track and tie it into the new structure. And so we are running our service on what is historically known as our two northbound tracks, tracks 3 and 4. We're running one direction northbound, one direction southbound, while we rebuild now the old 1 and 2. But both up on the LBM corridor and the RPB corridor, we are entirely on new structure. So we're on a modern, and it is amazing, and it is quiet, and it is smooth as can be. So it's really exciting to get to this next level of milestone. Here's again that cut and throw. You can see how we've tied the tracks over, put in that temporary curvature while we rebuild the tracks around it. And then up on the Lawrence and Bryn Mawr area, we're starting to build structure. So I've been showing you some caissons. You'll have some other photos of caissons, but here they are making that bridge, that tie-in point for where the segmental box girder structure starts to pick up, and you can see the steel going in. This is close to Ardmore, which is the further northern portion of the project. Here's what would be a photo of RPM without a caisson being drilled. So there are 80 some odd caissons in the second phase that are tied to the station or the main structures, and those are moving along. We're about 40% complete on those caisson drilling at this point. And they're starting to see columns again. So over the next few months, you'll see a lot more columns popping up. The early part of next year, see the gantry show back. Okay. With that, I will turn it over to Juan Pablo and just note that as always, we are very proactively communicating with the communities we're working in, as well as our partnerships with the federal government. We do a lot of tours with the FTA and other government agencies showing all the great work and really the investment we're making in the community here and the impact of that.
Thanks, Bill. Here on the picture on the slide, that's from our another installment of our Tracks to Trades program that we hosted last month. This program is a collaboration between CTA, Walsh Floor, other subcontractors and RPM, building trade unions and educational institutions to expose high school age and young adults to careers in construction in the industry and show them the different pathways that are available to them. So we held 3 sessions at the Paul Simon Job Corps Center on November 13th, 15th, and 17th. Around 40 students heard about the RPM project, the opportunities that are available, and how to pursue a career in the building trades or in the professional services spaces in construction. Speakers included representatives from Ironworkers Local 1, Local 63, Hired 360, Daly College, IBEW Local 134, 2 DBE firms that are working on RPM, the Bricklayers, and Wintrust Bank. We completed another session earlier this month that I'll cover in next month's report. As of the end of November, 118 unique DBEs have been awarded over $268 million between the design and construction packages on RPM Phase 1. 53 of those firms are new to CTA. And on the workforce side, as of the end of November, 2,047 unique individuals have worked over 1.5 million labor hours and earned over $87 million. That concludes our report. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions for myself? Thank you.
Questions?
Director Ja?
Questions, thank you.
Director Ortiz?
Thank you.
Director Jakes?
No, I'll see them offline.
Any questions, Director Miller? And Chairman Barclay?
No questions. Thank you very much. Our final order of business is new business. Georgette, is there any new business?
Chairman Barclay, there is no new business.
Mr. Chairman, before we adjourn, can I just say on behalf, we want to wish you all a happy holiday and enjoy a celebration for the new year. And if you get a chance, please take advantage of seeing either a holiday train or a holiday bus. All of the teams here at CTA and bus ops, rail ops, bus maintenance, rail maintenance, south shops, and Skokie shops, rail engineering, put a lot of work into it. And we would love for you all to get a chance to experience what it is like. I can tell you, having been on it myself, it is a wonderful thing to watch the eyes of our customers light up when they see either one of those vehicles go by them. And I can't tell you how kids react, but if you get a chance, please try to enjoy it before the holiday season's over.
Can't tell you how kids react, but I can tell you how adults react. My 3rd year going, I go on the maiden voyage the day after Thanksgiving. And it is a wonderful experience. It's turned into a family tradition. So if you haven't had an opportunity to do so, please do so. And it's just a wonderful thing that our employees volunteer their time. That's what I learned to decorate the trains and to bring some joy into the hearts of so many of our citizens here in Chicago. So it's a wonderful experience. I would encourage you to take advantage of that. But I want to thank them publicly to commend them on a great job that they do every year on a voluntary basis. So thank them, please, for me. Since there is no further business to come before the board, I have a motion to adjourn the Chicago Transit Board meeting of December 13th, 2023. Second.
It's been moved by Director Ortiz and seconded by Director Jakes that the Chicago Transit Board meeting of December 13th, 2023 be adjourned. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Ja? Director Ortiz?
Yes, and happy holidays.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. Have a great holiday.
Thank you.